Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and sickness.
The Bible contains remarkable stories of miracles and divine interventions. Moses parted the sea. Peter healed a man lame from his mother's womb. Jesus drove demons out of people and raised others from the dead. But are these types of events still happening today?
We too have a beam of divine light and guidance that God has put within the heart of every man. And it's one of the greatest proofs that there is a God.
More amazing supernatural things are happening than we realize.
This is Divine Intervention, the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. Divine Intervention was created and produced with the purpose of encouraging believers, spiritual seekers, and skeptics alike that Jesus is alive and is still performing miracles and working in the world today.
I believe in miracles.
Here's your host, Daniel Fazina.
Hello, friend, and welcome to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina. And as always, I am just so privileged, humbled, and excited to be with you today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with me as we bring you another testimony of how the Lord has worked in someone's life. We've got a great show for you, and before we get to our special guest, just want to remind you that if you miss any of the episodes of Divine Intervention Radio, you can check us out online. DivineInterventionRadio.com is the website. Facebook.com/Divine Intervention Radio, and also YouTube. All the archives are now on YouTube. YouTube.com/Divine Intervention Radio. Please check out the channel, like the videos, and subscribe to the channel, and make sure your notification bell is on. That way you'll be notified when there's a new uploaded episode, and by subscribing you'll really help us to grow the channel and also the radio show. We want to reach as many people as we can with the good news of Jesus Christ, and we do that primarily through testimonies. How has God intervened in people's lives? And today our special guest is Chris Wark, W-A-R-K, and his story is something that is very close to home for me. It's something that I can relate to, and I'm hoping that you will too, because I'm thinking probably a lot of people will be able to relate, because it's all about cancer. Chris is an author, and he's a health expert, and his book is called Chris Beat Cancer. And it's all about his recovery battle against cancer, if you will, but he calls it healing cancer, not fighting cancer. His website is chrisbeatcancer.com. Let me just give you a little bio about Chris before we introduce him here. Chris Wark is an author, speaker, patient advocate, and wellness crusader. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2003 at just 26 years old. He had surgery, but instead of chemotherapy, he used nutrition and natural therapies to heal himself. Chris has made many appearances on radio and television and was featured in the award-winning documentary film The C Word. Chris inspires countless people to take control of their health and reverse disease with a radical transformation of diet and lifestyle. You can visit him online at www.chrisbeatcancer.com, and it's my pleasure to welcome Chris Wark right now on Divine Intervention Radio. Chris, you are on Divine Intervention Radio. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Man, I'm so glad to be with you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure and an honor. I was very excited to learn about you and your story. And as many of my listeners might be aware, the subject that you talk about, that of defeating cancer or healing cancer, as you like to call it, is very close to my heart because I also was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 27, just a year later than you were, or a year older than you were when you were diagnosed. And we definitely want to get to your story and how you came through it. But before we do that, why don't you take us to the beginning a little bit? Tell us about your background. Who is Chris Wark, and how did you come to know Jesus in the first place?
Well, who is Chris Wark? That's a fun question to answer. I have no idea who I am. No, I was raised in a Christian home.
Okay.
I came to know the Lord at a pretty young age and grew up in a Christian school, and frankly, I didn't fit in. I was just wired differently than a lot of the other kids. And
in what way?
I just wasn't interested in the sort of all-American boy stuff.
Okay.
I was more artistic. I played soccer. I didn't care about football. I got into music, became a musician, and just kind of really found myself not fitting in at all. And I thought at the time that I didn't fit in as a Christian either.
Okay.
So I, in my teenage years and in early college, just wasn't living for God. Was just completely rebellious. But in college, I just had a breakthrough. I had just a turnaround in my heart, and I surrendered to the Lord. And I just realized what was missing from my life was Jesus, and so started pursuing Him and started dating the woman I ended up marrying, and finished college, started working, started a career, and at 26 started having abdominal pain, and that pain eventually progressed to the point where I went to the doctors and they found a golf ball-sized tumor in my large intestine, which is also known as the colon. At that time, I didn't even know what a colon was. I thought just a punctuation mark.
And I've kind of been in a similar situation where they find this thing and you're totally unexpecting it, and the doctor tells you what you have. And I know what went through my mind, but what was your reaction to getting this news? What did you say? What did you think in this moment?
It was just total chaos. It's like the bottom drops out from underneath you and you are falling, like grasping for something to hold on to and just sort of tumbling down a bottomless pit. That's how it felt.
Did they give you a diagnosis or a prognosis at that point?
In the beginning, I was a very typical cancer patient. I didn't know anything. Probably like you, right? We were both mid-20s.
Yeah.
And they said, look, you got this tumor. They biopsied it. They said it's colon cancer. You have to have surgery. We need to get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you.
Wow.
And so I'm just like, okay. So this was 2 days before Christmas, and I'm like, this is the worst Christmas ever. So I postponed the surgery about a week because I just didn't want to be in the hospital on Christmas. I just thought that's the worst thing I can imagine.
Right.
And so on December 30th, 2003, spoiler alert, didn't die. They took out the tumor. And when I woke up from surgery, they said, it's worse than we thought.
Uh-oh.
You're stage 3C. We were hoping it would be stage 2. If it was stage 2, you could go home and go back to your normal life. But since it's stage 3C, you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. This is much more serious.
Does stage 3 mean that it had spread to other parts of your body? Is that what that means?
Yeah, stage 2 means it's localized. Stage 3 means it's spread to the surrounding lymph nodes.
Okay, yeah, that's not good.
So it's on the move.
Right.
And there's sort of an outdated belief that if it's stage 2, if it's not in the surrounding lymph nodes, that it hasn't spread, but that's completely false.
Okay.
From before the time a tumor is big enough to detect, that means when the tumor is microscopic, cancer stem cells are already leaving the tumor site. They're called circulating tumor cells or circulating stem cells. They're already leaving the primary tumor site and circulating throughout your body to find new places to set up camp.
Uh-oh.
So, it's already spreading. But anyway, they said, you need chemo now, and I was like, okay, I guess this is my life. Now, I will say this, right when the diagnosis happened, the first verse that came to mind was Romans 8:28. And we know that God works all things for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose.
Yeah, that's a verse that I held on to as well.
Oh, man, that's awesome. And so I just meditated on that verse, and I just thought, I would do anything to not be in this situation, right? But if I'm going to exercise my faith and believe that God's word is true, that His promises are true, then I just have to believe that He's going to work this for my good. I don't know how. I wish it would go away. I wish this wasn't my life. This is a nightmare, a living nightmare. But I'm just going to believe this. What choice do I have?
Right. When you're in that situation, you really don't have a choice. This is your life now. This is the cards you've been dealt. How do you deal with it?
Some
Yeah.
people just shrug their shoulders and just say, whatever happens, happens, you know? But that just wasn't me. And I found another verse that was a huge encouragement to me, and that was Psalm 34:19, which says, "The righteous may suffer many afflictions, but the Lord delivers them from them all."
Wow. Powerful.
I'm like, yes, this is my verse right here. This is me. And then we stood up in front of our church when I had to tell my church family that I had just been diagnosed. I said, this is my verse. This is what I'm believing. God is going to deliver me from this.
Wow.
That's where I'm putting my faith.
I love that. Friend, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and we're visiting with our special guest, Chris Wark. He is a wellness crusader and a wellness advocate, and his book is called Chris Beat Cancer. You can check it out at chrisbeatcancer.com, and we'll also put a link to it up on Divine Intervention Radio. So, Chris, after you got this diagnosis, there was a couple of indicators about something that you could do to take control of your health, because from what I understand, you asked the doctors, well, how did I get this cancer? And they really didn't have a satisfactory answer. And then you got a very nice meal served to you after you had surgery. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about my post-surgery meal. And the things, before I do, I'm glad you brought this up, because most cancer patients want to know why they got cancer.
Yeah, I asked my doctor.
They asked their doctor, what caused this? Why did I get cancer at 26 years old? Why did you get it at 27 years old? Like, what is causing this? This is crazy. And you know what doctors say? They shrug their shoulders, and they usually say, well, we don't know. It might be bad luck, or maybe it's genetic. Those are the two answers that patients get. And you know what that does? When patients are told it's either bad luck or bad genes, it turns them into a powerless victim.
Right.
What they're saying in so many words is that there's nothing you did to contribute to your disease. We're not concerned with the causes. And there's nothing you can do to help yourself. Because if you didn't contribute to it, you can't help solve this problem. The only option you have, your only hope, is to just show up for treatment, cross your fingers, say your prayers, and hope for the best.
Wow.
And
you know, when you put it like that, that really bothers me, that this is the state that we're in. And I experienced a similar thing. Yeah, it's unnerving. Wow. But yeah, I went through the same thing. When I asked my doctor, you know, doctor, why did I get this cancer? You know, is there anything I could have done differently? He basically said the same thing. Like, no, if we knew why you got the cancer, then we wouldn't be here today. And I said, well, yeah, you're right. But,
yeah, and so that's the crazy thing.
Yep.
It would be okay if they didn't know why. Then it would be okay. But we know why. It's so insane. And I talk about it in great detail in the book. Up to 90% of cancers are caused by three things, three factors. Number one is our diet, the food we are eating. Number two is our lifestyle. And number three is environmental factors like pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Those three factors account for 90% of cancers. The other 10% are genetic or mysterious. Okay? So, and I'll get into those factors in a minute when I finish this part of the story.
Sure.
Don't let me forget it.
Okay.
Because I know your listeners want to know. So,
inquiring minds want to know. Yes.
Yes. So the cancer industry and the doctors and there's all this science. We know exactly what is causing cancer in our world, what we're doing that's causing cancer, and what other countries are not doing, and the reason they don't have the same high cancer rates as us. But anyway, I'll talk about it. Okay, so there I am. I'm laying in the hospital. I've just had surgery. They bring me my first meal after about 24 hours of, sedation, and put it in front of me, and it's a sloppy Joe.
Oh my goodness, those are kind of gross to begin with. But you just had like colon cancer surgery.
Yeah. I just had colon cancer. I have colon cancer. They took out a third of my large intestine, stitched it back together, and then they're like, "Here you go." enjoy this sloppy Joe, which, by the way, is a menu item only available at high school cafeterias, summer camp, the military, and prison.
Oh my!
As far as I knew. You know?
Wow.
As far as I knew. And then, they serve these in hospitals too? Wow. To sick people. So, yeah, that was a shock. That was a surprise. The second thing that happened in the hospital was, it was weird to me, was the day I was leaving, my surgeon came in to check on me, and I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? Because I didn't want to eat something like the wrong thing and screw up melt the stitches with hot sauce, or, I don't know. I don't know anything about the abdomen, right? Abdominal surgery, the intestines. I have zero knowledge. And I'm thinking, maybe he'll give me some tips or something, here's a quick list of the best foods to help heal your gut, or here's some foods you definitely don't want to eat after intestinal surgery. And I got neither. He said to me, and I quote, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
Don't lift anything heavier than a beer. Wow, okay. So I guess it was okay to drink beer too?
Beer's fine. Yeah, just don't strain yourself, buddy. You just take it easy.
Wow.
No matter what you eat. And so, the wheels are turning, and I'm thinking, gosh, I didn't realize that the healthcare industry and doctors had zero interest and placed zero value on nutrition. Because in my instincts and my intuition and my gut's telling me that healthy eating is pretty important.
That would make logical sense. Everyone seems to quote unquote know that, but at the same time, they don't really teach nutrition much in medical school. My wife is a doctor. She went through 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency. I think she had one semester maybe on health and nutrition, and that was it. Out of all that time.
And it's usually just kind of focused on basic nutrition for hospital patients, just keeping enough nutrition to keep them alive.
Right, not for healing disease.
Yeah, and there's reams. I mean, we have decades and decades of hundreds of thousands of published studies on nutrition, right, in the scientific and medical literature. But it's just not looked at in med school, because the big money is not in prevention. The big money is not in nutrition. The big money is in drugs. It's in surgery. It's in drugs. It's in radiation therapy.
The love of money, root of all evil, right?
Yeah, that's where the money is. There's no money in blueberries and broccoli and green tea. No money in carrots, right? There's no money in exercise. There's no money in stress reduction. So they're not trained in those things in the United States. Now, Eastern medicine's a little different. They are trained in those things. So I go home, I'm, on the couch, recovering, and the idea of poisoning my way back to health just didn't make sense to me. And I prayed about it. And I said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. I don't know what to do.
A good prayer, but also a dangerous prayer, right? Yeah,
it is. But, I'm just I help. I don't know what to do. And it doesn't feel right for me. And so let me just say, doesn't mean it's not right for everybody. I don't tell people not to do chemotherapy. I'm very critical of the cancer industry, and I want to educate patients so they make an informed decision, because most patients are rushed into treatment out of fear. And in my experience, most decisions you make out of fear and urgency are usually not very good decisions. They're usually impulsive and irrational and not well thought through. And we need to make decisions based on facts and faith, not fear.
I totally agree and understand that.
Yeah, and so it's important that a patient educates themselves before they say yes to treatment. That could be potentially harmful, right? Where they're removing body parts.
Yeah.
Or injecting toxic drugs, or using radiation, which can be cancer-causing and causes a lot of tissue damage and things. So You need to know what you're getting into. You need to understand those things. By the way, I have a free downloadable guide on my website called 20 Questions for Your Oncologist.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, if anybody goes to chrisbeatcancer.com, they'll see it. It's right there.
You know, and I want to make this point, too, because what you said is so critical. You need to be educated, and frankly, when you get a cancer diagnosis, you're probably not going to be in the right frame of mind to start this research. Not only that, but you're going to be pressured and rushed, because in my case, when I had my diagnosis, it was almost too late by the time they found anything. So I want to encourage you to not wait until there's a problem. Educate yourself beforehand, because you're going to need to know this stuff, or you're going to know someone who will need to know it. And trust me, like when you're in that position, it's very difficult to think straight, to focus, and to learn, and you're going to have a lot of pressure. So try and educate yourself before you need to. You know what I mean?
Thank you. I'm right there with you. I am trying to reach the masses to help them prepare themselves, to arm them with information. So, God forbid they are faced with this kind of diagnosis, or someone they care about is, they can come at it with a rational approach and not this frantic fear-based approach. And the 20 Questions guide will blow your mind, because it'll give you an inside peek at how the cancer industry works. And my book will too. So anyway, I said this prayer. I'm like, God, help me. 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska. I live in Memphis, Tennessee. And this guy who knew my dad sends me a book, and it was written by another guy who had healed his colon cancer naturally with nutrition and lifestyle change. And it's not a book I really recommend today, because there's some information in it that's off. But the core message of the book was that cancer, for the most part, is caused by our diet and lifestyle. And like I alluded to earlier, the science backs this up. And this was a huge light bulb for me, because I was like, oh, wait a minute. The way I'm living is killing me. And this is good news, because I can change the way I'm living. I was eating fast food, junk food, processed food, tons of meat and dairy. I was eating the standard American diet.
Oh, I was going to say, what were you doing that you think contributed to you getting cancer?
I was eating the same crap everybody else eats. And, it got me quicker, right? For whatever reason, right? I might have had genetic vulnerability, but it got me quicker than most people. Most people don't get colon cancer till they're over 50. And I got it at 26. But the reality is, colon cancer is a dietary disease. It's caused by our diet. In fact, in rural Africa, the rate of colon cancer is 50 times lower than the U.S.
50 times lower? Wow.
50 times. 50 times. They don't have a genetic advantage. It's all about the diet.
Well, what are the people in rural Africa eating or not eating that we're eating or not eating?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Oh, is that in your book? It probably is.
It is in the, but we are going to talk about it. I know we're coming up on a, so I'll go into those specifics after the break. But I got this book and I knew it was an answer to prayer. I mean, right away.
I do want to hear about what the book was about and how it caused you to change your thinking. But we are up against a break, so when we come back, we're going to hear more from our special guest, Mr. Chris Wark. Again, his book is called Chris Beat Cancer. Check it out at chrisbeatcancer.com. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and this is Divine Intervention Radio. Stay with us.
We'll be right back with more from Daniel Fazina and Divine Intervention right after this.
I believe in miracles.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCullough. You may know me from Fox News Television or talk radio. I talk a lot about things that affect people's lives on a regular basis. And one of the things I've always wondered if people woke up wondering each morning is, could I work for myself? Could I find a business that would allow me to use the skills I have to pursue revenue that I need so that I can build a vision that I have? How would you like to be your own boss with no commute, no alarm clock, no employees or politics or compromises or discrimination? None of that educational requirement, but something positive that actually impacts people's lives. That's the opportunity of Ambit, an energy business that you can not only own now for less than $500, but make lots of money with. Call for your start today at 205-55-AMBIT. That's 205-55-AMBIT, or online at freepowernow.com.
Hey, this is Daniel Fazina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience divine intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4784. That's 1-800-247-4784. Divine Intervention welcomes the support of Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants is a family-owned and operated Christian business serving their clients with quality accounting services for over 40 years, offering full-service accounting for any type of business, large or small, in any state of the union. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants, 12 Oak Street, No. 5, West Hampton Beach, New York, 11978. Phone 631-288-3334. That's 631-288-3334. Divine Intervention is supported by the Other Perspective Media recording artist, poet Billy Lamont. Poetry, music, film, video, publishing, art, activism, photography, philosophy, Jesus. The Other Perspective 777, a sacred art sensory experience. More information about poet Billy Lamont's CDs, books, and Other Perspective Media can be found at www.billylamont.com. That's www.BILLYLAMONT.com.
What's happening? This is Fieldy from Korn. You're listening to Divine Intervention with Daniel Fazina. Stay tuned.
Hebrews 6:10, it's right here. The thing to calm your fears, give you inner strength. If you've been stumbling, do you take off on your own? And wonder when it'll stop, forgiving all your faults. God won't forsake you where you are. He completes anything he starts. God knows you tried. Yeah, because he lives inside.
Welcome back to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, DivineInterventionRadio.com. And this is the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. Today's guest is no exception to that. His name is Mr. Chris Wark, and he is an author. And he wrote the book Chris Beat Cancer, talking about his journey in healing from colon cancer, which he was diagnosed with at the young age of 26. Even younger than I was at 27 when I got lymphoma. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Daniel.
So, before the break, we were talking about how you received a book from a gentleman in Alaska who had actually healed from colon cancer naturally through nutrition, and that kind of got your mind working and you were thinking. So how did that change your perspective, and how did it affect the route you took to heal from cancer?
Yeah, this idea started to form in my mind thanks to this book, which led me on a quest to start reading and researching like crazy. And I read a ton more books on healing naturally. I have a very simple belief system. I believe that God created the earth for us. I believe that everything we need comes from the earth. And when I started to understand and learn how toxic our modern food system is, then all the dots started to connect. And I realized the cause of my disease. And that was an unhealthy diet, an unhealthy lifestyle to some degree, and possibly environmental pollution. So what I did was overnight, because I knew this was an answer to prayer. I was like, this is it. I prayed. This book showed up. This is what I got to do. And I converted to an all raw diet, raw fruits and vegetables, plant-based, vegan diet. Straight from the earth. It's like going back to the Garden of Eden. Okay? Fruits and vegetables only, and only raw. The author of this book was making the case that you should eat food in its purest form, raw organic fruits and vegetables. And I was like, this is crazy. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard of, and I love it.
How difficult was that transition? You said you did it overnight. I changed my diet and stuff as well. I'm a vegetarian now. I have been for a while. I tried to go all vegan, haven't quite made it there yet. For me, in my lifestyle, my family, it's just very difficult. But how difficult was it for you to do this?
It was extremely easy, because it was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm dying, and this could maybe save my life.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I shall do this.
Well, that makes sense. You had great motivation.
Yeah.
See, I only went vegetarian like 3 years ago, although I had been cancer-free for about 15 years at that point. I did change everything radically while I was going through chemo and treatment and all that, but I did, continue to eat meat and stuff, and I probably shouldn't have, but I'm getting there. So pray for me.
Well, we can talk about that. But so I guess I could talk about it now. But yeah, the thing is, we're eating all this artificial food, right? Artificial flavors, colors, additives, preservatives, sweeteners, right? This is food that your body was never meant to ingest. It causes you metabolic harm, and it's toxic. It's poisonous. It's polluting your body. And you're eating it every day over and over and over and over. So it's easy to make a case that processed food is terrible, okay? Mm-hmm. It's not natural. It doesn't come from the earth. It comes from a factory. Don't eat it. Okay, that's a pretty easy case to make. Now, the animal food case is some people have a hard time with, but I can explain it pretty simply. We are most closely designed to eat an herbivore's diet. So if you look in nature at herbivores, look at their teeth, look at the way they chew their food, and look at their digestive tracts and their stomachs, you find primates, a good sample. I'm not saying we evolved from primates, I don't believe that, but they are designed to eat fruit, plant food. And the strongest animal in the jungle is the gorilla, and all they eat is
vegetarian, yep.
Trying to chew plant food. Now, can we eat animals? Absolutely. Can we survive eating animals? Of course. But eating a diet high in animal protein leads to disease. It's not a diet that you thrive on. It's a diet for survival. And the only reason Adam and Eve, right, our ancestors, started eating animals is because they got kicked out of the garden, right? And they had to start growing their own food, which is fine when the weather's good. But in times of famine and difficult seasons of the year, it becomes hard to grow food, right? Mm-hmm. You have to catch and or kill animals and eat them to survive. And that's the reason humans started eating animals, was for survival. And even our ancestors didn't eat meat 3 times a day. That's crazy. Like, that's excessive, and easily, arguably, that's gluttony. Eating and killing an animal 3 times a day? Well, you're like, well, I don't kill animals. The animals are killed on your behalf, so you can eat them 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Right? So our ancestors didn't do that. Eating animals was reserved for special occasions because, A, it's difficult to catch and kill animals, and B, if you raise them, you can't kill a chicken every night for dinner because you run out of chickens. So,
yeah, that's right.
You can't kill a cow because you're in the mood for a steak, right? You got 1,000 pounds of meat there. Like, it's going to go bad. So, I mean, if the village is killing a cow, it's a celebration, a holiday, right?
Right.
Everyone is going to feast. And they don't feast every night. They feast once a month, maybe once a quarter, once a year. But factory farming has led us to this system where we can raise millions of animals and kill them for food. Mm-hmm. And it's not good. And animal protein kills cancer growth. It's animal protein and fat fuel cancer growth. They contribute to heart disease. They contribute to diabetes, and they raise IGF-1 in the body, which is a growth hormone that fuels cancer growth. They raise iron in the blood, which fuels cancer growth. They raise an amino acid in the body called methionine, which cancer cells are dependent on to survive. And beef especially, almost all beef is contaminated with bovine leukemia virus. And bovine leukemia virus is now linked to a third of all breast cancers.
Oh, my goodness.
The virus from cows that you get when you eat undercooked beef. How many people are eating undercooked beef? Most people,
yep.
Right? They like it medium rare.
Mm-hmm.
It's undercooked. So there's a long list. I talk about this in more detail in the book, and I don't want to fill up the whole interview with this, but there's a long list of reasons why you want to seriously consider not eating animals or cutting way back.
Right.
Right? So you don't have to become a pure vegan, but even going from eating animal food 3 times a day to 3 times a week, that's an 80% reduction. That's huge.
That is
you get
huge.
a huge benefit from that.
And I appreciate the fact that your book has a lot of research in it, a lot of facts, a lot of statistics. It's very well done and well researched. Again, the book is called Chris Beat Cancer by our special guest, Mr. Chris, last name Wark. So you can check him out at chrisbeatcancer.com. And Chris, I want to ask you also, what effect did you notice when you went from your standard American diet to an all-raw vegan diet?
Yeah, so the first few days of a radical diet change like that, even if it's not raw, even if it's just going from meat-based to plant-based, you're going to feel weird, right? Because your body is accustomed to eating a certain way. It's adapted to eating meat 3 times a day. So it's expecting meat 3 times a day. So when you remove meat and dairy, your body's kind of like, oh, something's missing. Something doesn't feel right. So the first few days are a little weird. Right? You might feel hungrier than usual, or you might not feel full in the way that you're used to feeling full. You might have low energy or fatigue, or you might even suffer withdrawal symptoms, like you feel really bad, and you think, I just have to have meat. I just don't feel good if I don't eat some meat. I hear this all the time, and the truth is, it's like, no, you're withdrawing from it. You're suffering from food withdrawal. You don't need it. Your body's just accustomed to it. So it takes a few days to get over the hump. But once you do, then you feel amazing. You feel really, really good. So that's what I went through. It's what everybody goes through. And so you just expect that. I'm going to probably feel weird and lousy for a few days. Just got to push through it and get on the other side of it and break those cravings and food withdrawals, because it's the sugar, salt, the fat, the oils, animal protein, all of those foods are actually addictive foods. If they weren't, you wouldn't be craving them at every meal.
Right. And how long did it take you, after your surgery and when you started this diet, to actually get to the point where the doctors declared you cancer-free?
So the next thing that happened for me was I had this epiphany. I want to heal with nutrition. I want to build my body up. I don't want to tear it down further with chemotherapy. Now, I don't talk people out of chemotherapy. That's not what I do. I don't tell people not to do it. And in certain instances, chemotherapy has tremendous value. But in others, it does not. And unfortunately, it's prescribed to everybody, pretty much.
Right.
Whether or not it has much benefit at all. And it's almost prescribed still after 60 years in an experimental fashion, which is, we're going to give you chemo, and we're going to monitor you, and we're going to see what happens. Now, the cancers that respond the best to chemotherapy would be what you had, Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, testicular cancer, and childhood leukemia have very high survival rates. Like over 90% of those patients typically live 10 years or more because chemotherapy works really well. They've figured it out. Okay, it's not always curative, but it is in many cases. I'd say the majority of those cancers. But the problem is breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, liver cancer, ovarian, cervical, brain cancer, prostate, pancreatic cancer, multiple myeloma. There's a long list of other cancers that chemotherapy doesn't cure. It only slows it down a little bit, but then ends up, in many cases, making those cancers more aggressive. And
wow.
most of your listeners have seen this happen to somebody they care about, maybe to themselves, where, yeah, the chemo shrinked the tumor for a little bit, but then it started spreading, and chemo wouldn't stop it anymore. And that happens for two reasons. One is chemotherapy destroys your immune system, and your immune system's your first line of defense against cancer. So when you wipe out your immune system and then poison your body with a substance that can cause more cancer, because most chemotherapy drugs are carcinogenic, and also makes existing cancer stem cells more aggressive, well, guess what happens? Like, you've got like a double whammy. You've got more aggressive cancer and a decimated immune system, and that's why it spreads and takes over so quickly in many cases after the first round of treatment.
Wow.
So that's the paradox
right.
of chemo.
You're getting a carcinogen directly injected into your bloodstream in the hopes that it will kill cancer. And the way that I understand it is that chemotherapy kills all fast-growing cells, which includes cancer cells, but it also includes a lot of good cells, too, in your body.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yes, it kills fast-growing cells, which is a ton of different cells in the body. Immune cells are the most important of those. Only some types of cancer cells are fast-growing, though. And here's the thing people aren't told. The cancer cells that are the most important to kill are the cancer stem cells, and they are slow-growing.
So that's why you can kill a tumor, but it might grow back. Okay.
Yeah, in a lot of types of cancer. Now, I'm trying not to be overly general because there's over 200 different types of cancer. There's over 11 different types of breast cancer. Okay, but the point is, we know for the most, especially solid tumor cancers, that chemotherapy drugs typically don't kill the stem cells. They just kill the fast-dividing cells. And the stem cells are the ones that started the trouble in the first place, and if they survive, they become more aggressive, and then those stem cells circulate throughout the body, set up new camps, and new tumors start forming and growing fast again. So, again, that chemotherapy is often a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Okay. Now tell us about your, your own process and what happened, both from the healing or the nutritional aspect and also the spiritual side. What things were helpful for you? How were you reaching out to God? Did you have a support structure? Because that was key for my healing too. The church family rallying around me, praying for me, anointing me with oil, prophesying to me, saying, Daniel, this thing was born to die. It's going to be a testimony to the Lord. All sorts of things like that. What was your experience?
Yeah, man. So it's important for me to note that everything I just said with regards to chemotherapy and the way it works, I didn't know any of that. Okay? I had zero knowledge in January 2004, but I had my instinct and my intuition, the Holy Spirit telling me, like, this is not for you. And so I got excited I wanted to build my body up with nutrition, right? I didn't want to tear it down any further. And so I was just like, this is what I want to do right now. This is what I'm excited about. This is what makes sense to me. I want to build myself up. I want to strengthen my immune system. I want to detoxify my body. I want to help my body heal. And so most of my family didn't understand, and there was a lot of pressure to do the traditional route. And, I went to see
I can relate to that.
And, yeah, and he told me, if you don't do chemotherapy, you're insane.
Who told you this?
The first oncologist I saw.
Okay.
And that was frightening, man. It was terrifying to realize that everyone thought I was crazy. No one understood, and I was pretty much alone. It's like Peter stepping out of the boat alone. And that's how I felt. It's like me and Jesus, don't let me drown.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let me drown, man. So that was very difficult emotionally for me. But I also am an only child, and so I've been accustomed to doing things my own way my whole life. And so part of me was, my whole life had been preparing me for this, to go this route alone, right? To sort of what I describe as hack through the jungle alone. Mm-hmm. And it was just like Jesus and a juicer, man.
That's
all
funny.
I got. All I got.
I understand that your mother actually was one of the first people to support you in this because she was very much into health and nutrition herself. Is that right?
Yeah, this was one of those mini miracles.
Yeah, tell us about that. I think that's critical.
M-I-N-I, these little miracles that happened along the way. I had many, M-A-N-Y, mini miracles. But, yeah, my mom had always been into health and nutrition. She was just been a natural health kind of junkie. And I found out she had all these books on healing naturally. I mean, just stacks and stacks of books she'd bought since the 1970s. And, like, every natural health and healing guru out there, she knew about them and had their books. And so I had this library of books you couldn't find anywhere that my mom had saved up. Books from Paul Bragg and Pablo Areola, books about rebounding, books about juicing and detoxification and raw food. It was crazy. It was crazy. So, and my wife, she came around pretty quickly too. It took a little bit of time, and it was a source of stress for sure in the beginning, but she came around when she saw how badly the cancer industry, especially the first oncologists we saw, treated us. So I basically made a decision to walk away from treatment, and in my mind I just thought, you know what, I can always do that. Right? There's always chemotherapy, but right now this is what I'm most passionate about doing. And I'm going to trust God to lead me. Like, this is where the rubber meets the road with faith.
Absolutely.
I asked for something, I received it, right? And it was giving me an alternative option, a different path to take. And it wasn't the wide paved road that all the masses were going down. It was the very narrow path that was into the jungle. And so I was like, okay, God, if you gave me this path, I'm going to trust that you're going to see me through. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Please don't let me die a fool. I would really prefer not to die the fool. And so that's what I did. Converted, changed my life overnight, started reading and researching, and started uncovering everything in my life that could be contributing to my disease and removing those things.
And how long did it take from your lifestyle change to get to the point where you were cancer-free, according to the doctors?
So it's a long process, because you don't get cancer overnight, and you're not going to heal it overnight. And this takes commitment and determination and patience and diligence.
And those are things that most modern people don't have. So you got to work on that too, right?
Yeah. So I can't say, this cures cancer in 2 weeks or whatever, right? That's the snake oil salesman.
Right.
So it's different for everyone. I've seen lots of people and interviewed a lot of people who've healed cancer holistically, against the odds, naturally, whatever, on my website. But for me, my situation was, you have aggressive cancer. It's especially aggressive in young adults. It's coming back. If you don't do chemo, it's coming back. And this is what I was told. And so the goal was to prevent this recurrence, right? This recurrence that was an almost certainty to all the medical professionals in my life, right? Three medical professionals, 3 MDs told me this. So every month I'm having blood work done. Every 6 months I'm having CT scans to see, has it come back, yes or no? Is what I'm doing working, right? Is what I'm doing helping my body heal,
right?
Powering my immune system to kill the remaining cancer cells in my body. And because the average person has thousands of cancer cells on any given day. And if your immune system's strong, it's going to identify and eliminate them. And a cancer patient has millions of circulating cancer cells, potentially. And I had probably somewhere in that range left over after the tumor was removed. So anyway, I just created a simple plan for myself, and I just followed it day in, day out. I created a support system. I found a naturopathic doctor. I found an integrative MD who supported me. I had multiple times people laid hands on me and prayed for me. I was anointed with oil. There was just a ton of people I know praying for me, and I could feel it, Mm-hmm. So I had that support, and I really dove into the Word and just started really seeking God and meditating on healing verses. By His stripes I am healed. And I started speaking affirmations to my body, speaking life into my body. I'm healed, I'm healthy, I am well, in Jesus' name. So I was constantly doing those things, every day. And as fear would try to creep in, I would catch it and I would just give it back to God. And I would say, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. Right?
That's awesome.
I trust you.
Did you have a day or a moment when you realized, hey, it worked and I'm cancer-free?
Yeah, so for me, there wasn't a clear, like, you have cancer, now you don't moment. But when I got close to 5 years, we did another scan, and there was no cancer.
Praise God.
And that was when the doctor said, well, it looks like you're all clear, right? You're out of
The ones who thought you were insane for not doing chemo, they had to admit
Not that guy. I never went back to that guy.
Oh, okay, good.
He was a colossal jerk.
Okay.
But the integrative oncologist that I found and worked with, this was another guy, because he had retired and had been sort of passed off to a new guy for monitoring.
All
but
right.
Point is, at that point I started to feel confident that, okay, I made it.
Yeah, 5 years out is considered
alive.
a success in cancer treatments and in therapy. But
5 years disease-free.
Right,
Big,
5 years
it's very
disease-free.
important. There's a lot of people that live 5 years and
right.
it was disease-free, and survival in 5 years was a benchmark. And that's when I started thinking about sharing my story. I mean, before that, I really didn't want to talk about cancer. I wanted to move past it. I just hated it, you know?
Oh, I hear that totally. Totally understand that. Chris, we're just about out of time, but give us one or two of the questions that you would suggest that people ask their oncologists in the next 30 seconds.
Will this treatment cure my cancer, yes or no?
Will this treatment cure my cancer?
Yeah, most patients don't even ask that.
Okay.
The other question was a very important question. You know, if the answer is no, then the question is, then what is the purpose of this treatment? Is this palliative or curative? That's another big question. So palliative means they're just giving it to shrink your tumor, but they know it won't cure you. And curative means, no, this is a curative therapy for, like in your case with lymphoma. Like, no, there's a high percentage, or maybe a small percentage, who knows, depending on the type of cancer, that chemotherapy will in fact cure your disease.
Okay. Yeah, they didn't tell me it would cure me. They told me I had about a 50 to 60% chance of survival with the chemo. And without it, they said I'll be dead within 3 weeks to 3 months. So,
yeah,
there you go.
Well, 50 to 60% chance is pretty good.
Yeah.
I was told similar. I was told you have a 60% chance of living 5 years with chemo, which is not a cure statement. It's
right.
just you'll be alive in 5 years, probably still with disease or whatever.
Well, Chris, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time out on Divine Intervention to share your testimony and your journey. I'm so glad that you are now cancer-free and healthy. Again, the book is called Chris Beat Cancer, and check him out at chrisbeatcancer.com. Our special guest has been Chris Wark. Chris, thank you so much, sir.
Daniel, you're awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, friend, that about does it for another exciting episode of Divine Intervention Radio. I hope this encouraged you to know that God is real and He's still intervening, answering prayers, and changing lives. Take care, and God bless. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Divine Intervention with your host, Daniel Fazina. You can email Daniel at divineintervention@mail.com. That's divineintervention@mail.com. All programs of Divine Intervention are available online at divineinterventionradio.com. That's divineinterventionradio.com. Join us next time here on Divine Intervention.
I believe in miracles.
Times are tough, not getting easier, but there's an opportunity that could make a significant change in your financial situation. People are paying too much for home utilities, and everybody has them. Help friends and family save money and get paid for it. No obligation. You don't even have to talk to anyone unless you want to. Just listen to a 3-minute recorded message. Call now, 715-GET-CASH. That's 715-GET-CASH. Listen, decide, and you could be on your way to a better tomorrow. 715-438-2274. That's 715-GET-CASH.